All right. Well, my favorite time of the week, it is Monday Industry Update. And I'm going to start us off with an article out of left field, and then I'll bring it full circle. So the first article out of left field is the founding member of hip hop's NWA goes straight out of Compton all the way to a healthcare metaverse. So we've talked a little bit about this metaverse on here a couple of times. It's basically the digital world. People are buying houses in the metaverse and Gucci sunglasses and all this stuff. So it's not a new concept, but this article struck me a little strange. And when you get down here, he's actually creating an environment where you actually go to the doctor, Matt, in the digital space. So it's what do they call it? Telehealth. Take it all the way into a digital metaverse now, and you can go see the doctor in the metaverse. And I thought, man, that's got some legs to it. And then I thought, well, they're not going to look at my ear or down my throat in a digital space, but a lot of times I'm just saying, hey, I hurt here, give me the antibiotics, or hey, these are my symptoms. This is what I'm feeling like, and a doctor might prescribe some stuff, right? So I started thinking about this, and I highlighted this, said consultations could be shifted into the digital world. So I started thinking, could a buyer in China, let's say, interact with a real estate professional in a digital space and look at houses, tour houses, buy houses in 100% digital environment from a country across an ocean? Am I crazy, or is this just out there?
100% valid and potential rich. I don't see why you couldn't. I bought the house in Marco Island, sight unseen, short of a video, and it was a virtual tour, a FaceTime, and some reports and some, CMA data. And then, it was contingent on a professional inspection and contingent on professional appraisal from third-party experts. And then it was contingent on, I came down for the inspection to put my hands on it. But yeah, it was 90% from afar. I was 4 weeks into the contract before I came down to see it.
So, when I first heard about this metaverse stuff, I started thinking, man, who the heck's going to spend a couple $100,000 buying a piece of real estate they could never live in? It just on the computer screen. But now I'm seeing something like this where they're bridging this digital space back into the physical world. Who's to say we don't have a real estate office in the digital space in the future, and people interact with us to buy real estate in the physical world? I don't know. It just out there, and I saw this article and I went, it's out of left field, but that's what Industry Update is all about. I'm bringing it to the table.
Have you ever used telemed, Brett?
I have, and they won't give you anything more than a Z-Pack in Georgia for some reason, so I don't like them.
What are you looking for, man?
Amoxicillin, man. When I get a sinus infection, I want the good stuff, right? But at the end of the day, it's pretty good. We don't need to waste time. All right, the numbers. Here's the big talking point of the week. All the big counties have more active inventory today than any other day they've had since probably November last year. So if you look at Fulton County, there's 646 active listings right now this morning. The next closest number was 620 in March. You can see the little spike in March here. But if you follow my arrow all the way back, it wasn't until December last year, or maybe even November, we had this kind of active inventory, which is normal, right? That's the historical bell curve of real estate. But that's gone out the window because it's just been weird with inventory and supply and demand, and that hyper focused, sellers market. You see the most inventory right now in Fulton County. If I go over to DeKalb County, it's even more drastic. It goes all the way back to November of last year. You get to Cobb County, I had to check my little peaks here, but 360 was higher than 358 and 348. It still has the most inventory going back to probably, what's that, November last year. So I guess the big question that I asked myself, like if I'm looking at Cobb County, we're pretty constant in pendings. We're pretty constant in closings. Active under contracts a little bit higher. So it's not like we're selling less. We're actually selling the same amount or more. Inventory is actually really building right now, which I think could be a temporary sellers saying, man, I was going to sell my house 6 months from now, but the world feels a little weird. Let me go ahead and list it now. And they're trying to get on the front end of this, which I think is opportunity for us. What do y'all think?
You know, I think it's a few things, Brett, and Realtor Rob put in here. How does this data compare to the same month of 2019? And this is a normal trend in April, right? This is listing palooza. This is the time to move. And although we are very shrunken down on inventory, this is the time in the historically that we have listed the most homes. And I think we're seeing a lot of that now. And I would also add on, I mean, with the news, the media, everything you're hearing going on, interest rate hikes, that conversations around selling now are probably at one of its peak over the last 2 years around getting out with values as high as they are.
Yep. And I'd say the more inventory, I mean, a 1 month pop in inventory isn't enough to declare a trend. And so we're just looking for trends and trajectory so that you can prognosticate where it's going. So I think it's just, it could be an anomaly month. It could be, I mean, it's just too early to assign a tremendous amount of value. The lagging indicator will be, will this increase days on market, or could it potentially reduce the number of multiple offers because there's more, buying opportunity? And so we'll know that, 30, 60, 90s. And as we hit summer, but I think the predicted reality we all agreed on back in January is that this year, really February after January, is that it's starting to look like the normal cycle that, and the question to Rob, back in 19, I don't have that data, but obviously COVID snuck into the picture and shifted our cycle, our seasonality.
Yeah. We didn't start tracking this until 2021, Rob, and on a weekly basis. And we've got the data all the way back to early 2021. So as we get more and more rich in our data collection, we'll certainly have a whole lot more analytics. But we do track home sales. And I could show you home sales in 2019 compared to 2022. And they're pretty even right now in the first 3 months. So I don't specifically have that data, unfortunately, Rob, but I will say, here, I always look at data and ask myself the question, what's the opportunity? And looking at this, this is Fulton County. There were 557 homes on the market to go show a week ago. There's almost 100 extra homes this week to go show. And I don't know if, as Rick was talking about from a lag indicator, I don't know if that means there's going to be less multiple offers or less people fighting, but I do know there's probably some opportunities for some buyers that might not have won in the last couple months that might be getting a little bit more at bats. And it's certainly a window of opportunity to get out there and get busy at showing and finding property for people right now. And if you had been discouraged a month ago, I would hope this data would re-encourage you to get out there and go sell some houses right now.
Well, that's the point of the data, is to initiate a quality conversation around fact and around statistical reality. So certainly a conversation, especially when you couple that argument with, not argument, but that the composition of that statement with the fact that it's almost, virtually guaranteed May and June are going to see rate increases on short-term interest. And that may affect demand on the buy side. So you add inventory increase with a slight suppression in demand, and this could be a perfect storm for a buyer that's been kind of pushed out of a few options and opportunities. And maybe they're down and out with their attitude around the opportunity, and bring them back in.
Yeah. Matt, anything you'd add?
I just agree with Rick there. I mean, if you add in interest rate hikes, so people are now not qualifying for what they were qualifying for 6 months ago, then an inventory increase as well. If you have good fact-based conversations, strategic conversations with your buyers who still qualify in this market, you should be up against a little less competition than you were 6 months ago just because of those factors.
Absolutely. I mean, it's certainly everything's hyper local. If we've never said that one time, we've said it 1,000. Real estate has everything to do with your neighborhood and where you're looking, but we'd certainly make general statements based on counties and data and cities and things like that.
Well, and the percentage increase is pretty significant when you run your thumbnail across, across each of the months, 550 to 646. You're right. It's almost 100. So that's, 17, 18, almost 20%.
Yeah.
So that's a nice boost in opportunity and potential. And it's a good time to bring your skills to the table and research those new listings to filter quickly, while they're still fresh for your,
Sure.
buyer client.
And just to prove a point, like this is Fulton County. You go to Cobb County, it's really not that big of an increase. It's only 25 new listings, but that's still almost 10%. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's know your market. Remember, you can always go to therealestatestats.com and get to this spreadsheet on your own time. All right. Stock market went haywire on Friday, and then it was predicted to go haywire today. I have not even had a chance to look and see if its predictions held true. But one of the things I want to just kind of bring up is, probably 5 years ago and beyond, I would have said the stock market and the real estate market are very attached at the hip, meaning when the stock market was thriving, consumer confidence was high, people were out investing in real estate, stock market went south, people's consumer confidence would go way low, they would stop their buying power. I actually feel like, and this is an opinion, I feel like the stock market and the real estate market are unhinged, meaning even though the stock market tanked on Friday, I don't think it affected people buying real estate very much. Maybe on the Uber luxury end where they had a lot of money, but man, they're not going, oh man, the stock market went down 20%. I better not hold off 6 months on buying real estate, where 5 years ago they might have. So I do think that's a good thing. And the other part of this is when people are selling off in the stock market, they're creating an amount of liquidity into their portfolio. And what I know is people don't like to sit on cash. So if they're selling out of the stock market, what are they doing with that money? It could turn out to benefit us in a way. What do y'all make of that? It was a big news article about what happened on Friday. Apparently Netflix has tanked. I better cancel my subscription. What do y'all know?
So my gut says that 90+% of all people in the stock market are in a long-term hold position. Yeah. And they may cost average when it dips. But I don't think many people are panic selling right now as a whole. And so there's probably a lot of institutional trading that's driving a high percentage of what you see in the market right now, where they're pulling money and possibly realigning in a different, a safer structured environment. Because certain sectors are doing better than others. I mean, I got a call from my guy last week in the market saying, hey, you mind if we take a little money off and then redeploy that in a different balanced, perspective, given what he sees coming. So some of it may be short term, and most people don't make home purchase decisions based on a one-day stock market, blip. So I guess I'm agreeing with you.
I appreciate that. I think, to the uneducated, let me put it this way, to the uneducated consumer, they might ask one of our real estate professionals, hey, the stock market went crazy. What does that mean for real estate? And how would we answer that question?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I would go back to the chart we drew last week and the week before on how real estate naturally grows and appreciates over time, right? And it's not a flat curve.
Want to draw it, Matt?
I would if I had all my technology set up. So
okay.
Maybe you could draw it. But that being said, real estate, if the goal of the consumer is to buy and hold, right? Real estate naturally over a 100-year period is 4% appreciation. And if you can just draw and spell that out in a simplified way, and their why for buying is behind the big fear is I don't want to lose all my money. Show them that chart, draw out that chart, and maybe give them a visual of how natural real estate appreciates over time.
Well,
There you go.
it's a brilliant safety net too, because it's not volatile. You don't have a 1-day depreciation of real estate of 10% or 15%.
Nope.
So, and again, to your point, it is a long-term play. And so, you know, people, what you want to be is the voice of reason and eliminate some irrational fear. And these are just volatile times in general. And we probably are headed to a recession, but the likelihood of a bubble, you know, there's just lots of factors that don't play into the bubble theory. And so that's where, you know, a significant loss in consumer confidence affects purchasing decisions, and you know, people sell off, and you know, that trajectory is different than just a blip or two as in terms of what we're seeing right now.
All right, Matt, I'm gonna draw, you explain. Can y'all see my screen?
We
Nope.
can't.
It says you're sharing, but it's not.
Oh,
It's blacked out.
It's
What?
black.
Oh,
how dare they?
Oh man.
It's blank.
Can you hold it up in front of your camera?
No, well,
Are you digital?
nothing?
nothing.
Oh, my. Oh, all right, we'll just go with it, but
We'll come back to it.
we'll come back to it. Anyway, let's keep rolling. All right. The Atlanta housing market. So the article in the Atlanta Business Chronicle said, despite Atlanta's rising home values, buying is still cheaper than renting. And I think this is an important article for real estate agents to understand, because even though house prices are going through the roof, we all know that, we're not as in tune with rent prices. And rent prices are going through the roof as well. So in this article, it says Atlanta's median rent last month was $2,095. Based on the average interest rate and a 5% down payment of the median price home, that mortgage payment is $1,703. Good information to know, because now you can say it's still cheaper to buy a median price house than it is to pay for a median price rental unit. I do think that gap is getting tighter and tighter and tighter, but it's still better for long-term to buy than rent right now. Now, if we lived in New York City, it may not be the same story, right? Like it may be more expensive to buy than rent. But as far as Atlanta is concerned, affordability has always been a big deal to our city. And there was an article that came out a few weeks back that said Atlanta is not affordable all of a sudden, which was a little bit of a clickbait in my mind. But it's still a good thing to understand that over the course of time. So the national median mortgage payment was $1,910 in March, and the rent was $1,940. So even nationally, it's still cheaper to own than it is to rent. But in Atlanta, it's actually even cheaper, because $2,095 was the median rent, and $1,703 with a 5% down was the median price home. I think those are good numbers to know and just have in your bag of consultative data, because it certainly is part of telling the story of why homeownership is such a powerful thing in the city that we all call home. Anything you guys add?
Sounds like incredible data to send anyone in your database that's currently renting.
Yeah.
Can you scroll up to show that bottom comment about, I'm sorry, down, where you had the median was nationwide. Okay, that one.
Yep,
Yeah.
here's the nationwide numbers. I'll tell you what, I'll pop this article in the chat for you.
I love this. This is so easily comprehensive for just the most basic, novice when it comes to numbers. I mean, it's easy to discuss. It's easy. It's a great talking point. I'm just going to share this immediately on my social media.
And the
Perfect.
goal is just to spark a conversation, right?
Right.
Because,
Yeah.
and, you know, make it about their experience and their quality of life and their trajectory with either, you know, life experience or wealth building around, you know, investments in real estate being a big part of that portfolio.
Perfect. The other talking point is basically new home construction is up, but projects are still stalling at a higher rate. What that means is here's the building permits, and you can see this is in 2019. This is in 2021. So building permits went up between 2019 and 2021. We exist in the South here. There were 903,500 building permits in the South. But if you look at stalled construction, which is number of housing units that didn't start the construction, meaning they got the permit, but didn't actually lay any groundwork. In 2019, there was 95,000. In 2021, there was 140, let's call it 145,000 of the 900,000 that never even broke ground. And I think that's supply chain. I think that's builders. And one of the things that I'll give you an opinion, I'll kick it to you guys. I think the builders, it's not too far gone. They remember 2008, 9, and 10. And if you were a builder that built a lot of inventory on the ground, you took it pretty hard in 08, 9, and 10. And you had commitments and properties under construction. And you want to talk about a pipeline. Their pipeline was full, and they didn't forget that. I think if I was a builder today, even though the market is as hot as it is, I'm going to be a little cautious. I'm not going to put it all out there on starting houses, because Matt, your world, if I permit a house today, what's the time frame by the time I'm selling it and getting out from underneath it?
Out from underneath it?
8 months, 9 months?
Cobb County, probably 7 to 9 months. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's real estate going to look like 9 months from now?
I could see why as a builder, you wouldn't want to get overstretched with everything we're hearing in the data we're seeing.
Yeah. So I think they're going to stall out a little bit. Just my opinion.
Well, one of the bigger expenses is cost of money. So
Yeah.
if they get midway through building a house and they've got 200,000 sitting in, you know, on draws from the bank, they're making payments on it, and it's expensive. It's
Yeah.
expensive. And there's also probably a percentage of those, I would be stunned if not, that were braced and ready. And as they continue to watch the increases in pricing, have just made a strategic decision to wait for that to settle and balance a little bit better. In fact, I was talking to our construction team on a couple commercial deals, in fact, this morning, and the good news is wood costs and plywood and different laminates they're down 25% just in the last 3 weeks. So a little hopeful pricing, improvement really goes a long way when you're building a lot of houses.
Yeah. So breaking news, Elon Musk just bought Twitter. If you're on here last week, I asked you, why do you think he wants to buy Twitter? And I'll just shortcut the guessing game. He wants the database, guys. There's no bigger database out there to purchase than a social media platform where we've all given our name, email, cell phone, the whole 9 yards. And he's bought this distribution network, this database, and keep the opinions out of it. I just want to tie it back to you. Your database is your business. Your database is your value. And if that's not a breaking news for industry update, I don't know what is. All right, last article. So Inman News singles out Gary Keller and writes this clickbait article. And let me give you a little bit of background on this article, because there's actually a big story behind this. And then, of course, Inman singles Gary out in a weird way. But here's what's going on. In Missouri, there are class action lawsuits attacking the buyer agent commission that they deem that the seller shouldn't have to pay a buyer agent commission. And so they're suing for $1 billion worth of commissions to be paid, that were paid to the buyer's agents that should be reimbursed to home sellers in Missouri. And they're tying Gary Keller into this. But here's what this looks like. So it says, at issue, it's an NAR policy, sometimes known as the buyer broker commission rule, that requires listing brokers to offer a blanket unilateral offer of compensation to buyer brokers in order to submit a listing to a realtor affiliated multiple listing service. Here's the thing, I'm committed to bringing all news to you guys, good, bad, and different. This is a threat to our business long-term, just being honest with you. And let me give you a little history. In years past, you as a real estate agent would represent a seller, and one buyer would look at a house on this side of the street and Matt would be representing the seller. And then they'd cross the street and walk into my listing that I represented across the street. And whatever house that buyer bought was represented by the agent that represented the seller. They were a customer. Well, then the National Association of Realtors and the Real Estate Commission said, that doesn't necessarily protect the buyer the best way possible. We need to have what's called buyer representation. And we all know buyers really barely have enough money to even get into a house. So it actually kind of worked out economically to where the seller would compensate the buyer's agent through intermediary or through a cooperative agreement that was spelled out through the MLS. There are a lot of lawyers and people out there in our industry that want to challenge that practice. And they think that sellers shouldn't have to pay for the buyer commission. Buyers should have to negotiate their own commission with their agents, blah, blah, blah. We all pay money annually to a political action committee. This is where that money tends to go, is fighting policy like this. So all that being said, it's a threat to our economic model long term. I don't think it's anything in the short run, but you got to understand what's going on. And then the fact that they singled Gary Keller out in saying this, that, and the other, I think it was totally irresponsible. But at the end of the day, if you can get past the clickbait of the headline, the real meat of this article is there are lawsuits going on up there in Missouri for the tune of $1 billion, challenging the buyer agency commission the way it's done in our industry today. I've got my opinion. I won't put it out there publicly, but I just wanted to make sure everybody understood what's going on, and that's really what's going on right now. Make sense? Anything you'd add, Rick? You got a perspective?
I mean, I don't see how they could retroactively refund sellers commissions when it was disclosed. I assume Missouri has the same style or type of listing agreement where there's full transparency, and to be honest, the way it reads is that it's a listing commission and the listing agent has agreed to cooperate if there's another licensed broker that brings a buyer that's a qualified fit that helps consummate a sale. So it's interesting to me that there's no deception or fraud and it's all in writing, but obviously there's some strong advocates for it or wouldn't have made the news the way it did. And ultimately there's always going to be compression and for commission. And my best advice is always bring an amazing amount of value that your clients always walk away from the closing table totally fulfilled in your capacity to deliver on a net return on investment and the ease at which the transaction occurred, and that they were honored in every step of the way. And, hopefully this just becomes another news article that, swings left.
Well,
or right
I think
later.
it's just like the do not call list, there's class action lawsuits around that, right? So you'll hear us on calls all the time going, I don't even remember the acronym, TCP, something, TCTP or whatever. Making sure, check the do not call list before you make phone calls, right? That's because there was a class action lawsuit around that at some point in time. There's this class action lawsuit around buyer agent commission right now. Just something to be aware of.
Well, it's a good point, because if your clients are, savvy and read the news and pick it up somewhere along the line, you'd better be ready to justify your commission. And that's always the case, but more so than ever, if they were to raise this, what about this lawsuit? And you just need to be versed so that you're the subject matter expert.
There you go. Any questions, guys? We got just a minute.
But politically, is there something some action we should be taking to help further the fighting of that sort of lawsuit?
Yeah, your board of realtors and your political action committee dollars is probably your best way to support your opinion around that.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Thank you.
they've got lobbyists that are, on staff and work really hard to protect, our rights as an industry. They do valuable work. There's no way around it. And one quick area they've been very active is making sure that mortgage interest stays tax deductible. That's a big advantage that sellers have and homeowners have, that if that went away, it might change some of the economics of an investment decision. So that's just, it's years in the fight in trying to maintain and keep that. So this is just another opportunity.
And you'll see there's some little conversations going on, like there's a movement to try to disclose the buyer agent commission on websites now. Well, that's kind of a byproduct of this lawsuit and that kind of thing, right? So it's just understanding your industry, and that's why you show up Monday at 2:30 for our industry update. Have a good one, guys.
See you guys.